So basically this is a continuation of the previous chapter. In the previous chapter, what was described was Ragatmika Bhakti, or the mood of spontaneous love of the residents of Vrindavan especially, who are the topmost Ragatmika Bhaktas. This, those who are spontaneously attracted to Krishna love and fully absorbed in Him eternally are the Ragatmika Bhaktas, and their absorption takes the shape of, in one of the four different rasas, primary rasas, of what? One? Yes, Shringara. Any others? Vatsalya, good. And Dasya, okay. And Shanta. But Shanta, Rupa Goswami doesn't usually consider it rasa. But it is considered here. Actually, we may hear that. And this Ragatmika Bhakti is divided into two different categories of Kama Rupa and Sambandha Rupa, which means having the form like lust and having the form of relationship. So yesterday's class we heard about this sensual attraction, which is Kama Rupa at the end. And now we are going to hear something about Sambandha Rupa, the feeling of relationship. It should be understood that this feeling that Kama Rupa is also really Sambandha Rupa, or Kamatmika is Sambandhatmika. But to give special stress or importance to the conjugal relationship, Rupa Goswami has divided into these two categories, because the feeling of relationship is there with Krishna. And the attitude of the denizens of Vrindavan, such as Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yasoda, is to be found the ideal transcendental concept of being the mother and father of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. Factually, no one can become the mother or father of Krishna, but a devotee's possession of such transcendental feelings is called love of Krishna and a parental relationship. The Vrishnis, Krishna's relatives at Dwarka, also felt like that. So spontaneous love, so this means this Sambandha Rupa, this also takes place in Dwarka. So it is found in both amongst those denizens of Dwarka who belong to the dynasty of Vrishni, and amongst the inhabitants of Vrindavan. So the Yadavas in Dwarka, they are thinking of Krishna, oh, he is our family member. And when your family member is very wonderful, you feel very proud, and that relationship increases your love for that person. So similarly in Braja, all the different rasas, they are proud. All the different devotees, Ragatmika devotees, in Sambandha Rupa, they are proud of Krishna. They are thinking that we are so fortunate to be in this village because we have such a boy like Krishna, and he is our village person. It's just like when, the World Cup, right? You know what the World Cup is? Yes. So if your team won, your country's team won, everyone feels like with cricket matches, right? Everyone feels this, right? Even though we're devotees, been devoted for so many years, when your team wins, you feel a little bit, like that. Some places, but not in the temple usually, no. So you're proud when the member of your group does well. So how proud were the residents in Vrindavan and the Vrishnis of Krishna? He was so beautiful. And even in Dwarka, this Satyajit was wearing this Shamsaka money, the Sharmataka jewel. And he was so effulgent that the Yarus, or the Vrishni members of Dwarka, were thinking, just see how wonderful it is that Krishna is here in our town, and even the sun god is coming to see him. And they felt their chests swelled with pride, and they felt so much ecstasy, thinking, oh, Krishna is one of us. He is the topmost one of us. So it's like that. What to speak of if Krishna is, if you're loving Krishna in the mood of son or friend, how wonderful it is to have such a friend like Krishna. Who Bakashur attacks him and bites him like this, like that, and pecks him like that in Krishna, and he swallows Krishna even. And he spits out Krishna, and Krishna breaks his beaks in half. And the cowherd boys were thinking, when they saw Aghasura, they were thinking, first they thought it was a big mountain cave. And then they saw it was actually a great serpent who had opened up his mouth to swallow them. So, when they decided to walk in anyway, even though they understood it was a serpent, and they were thinking, anyway, Krishna will save us. He's our friend. So they had such deep, intimate relationships like that with Krishna. It was so dominated by love. And there was no feeling of awe and reverence, especially in Braja. And therefore Braja Bhakti is considered higher than even Dwarka Bhakti. Because there's no reverence at all. Spontaneous love of Krishna as exhibited by the Vrishnis and the denizens of Vrindavan is eternally existing in them. In the state of devotional service, where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this love, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. So Rupa Goswami is explaining here, this topic about Ragatmika Bhakti is really the same as Prema Bhakti. Right? And since the actual topic that's being discussed here is Raganuga Sadhana, Sadhana Bhakti, not Sadhya Bhakti or Prema Bhakti, therefore he's not going to discuss any more about Ragatmika Bhakti, because that's going to be discussed later, because again the topic is sadhana. Now, next topic is the eligibility for spontaneous devotional service. Persons desiring to follow in the footsteps of such eternal devotees of the Lord as the Vrishnis and Vrindavan denizens are called Raganuga devotees. So we've already learned that there is Ragatmika Bhakti, and those who are following Anugata, those who are following the Ragatmikas are called Raganugas, if they are following in the same mood. This means that they are trying to attain the perfection of those devotees. These Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principles of devotional service very strictly. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary explains, but this is not the qualification for being a Raganuga devotee, that you don't follow the rules and regulations strictly. No, their qualification is that their heart is fixed tadatmika. It is fixed in the same mood with these residents of Vrindavan. And because they're already on this exalted platform, they don't follow the regulative principles very strictly. But that doesn't mean, and it will be explained later, that it doesn't mean that they neglect the regulative principles. They follow the regulative principles, but they follow it in a spontaneous way, and they follow especially those regulative principles, the Vaidhi, that actually increases their love. They do it in such a way. But by spontaneous nature they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees such as Nanda or Yasoda, and they try to follow in their footsteps spontaneously. there's a gradual development of ambition to become like a particular devotee, and this activity is called raganuga. We must always remember, however, because Prabhupada is always going to remind us, not to become peculiar discussion of these topics. We should always remember, however, that such eagerness to follow in the footsteps of the denizens of Braja, of Vrindavan, is not possible unless one is freed from material contamination. In following the regulative principles of devotional service, there is a stage called anartha-nivritti, which means the disappearance of all material contamination. Actually, that this anartha-nivritti, it is not completed until prema. Anartha-nivritti is not actually completed until prema. But this is not talking about, it is not started until prema bhakti, because this is the method to attain prema bhakti. So Rupa Goswami is, and Prabhupada is describing here, that the stage of anartha-nivritti, where one is free from at least the basic anarthas, of the disappearance of material contamination. Sometimes someone is found imitating such devotional love, but factually he is not free from anarthas or unwanted habits. It has been seen that a so-called devotee proclaims himself a follower of Nanda, Yasoda, or the gopis, while at the same time his abominable attraction for mundane sex life is visible. So this is one time one devotee, not a devotee, but not an Islam devotee, but there was, during Prabhupada's time, there was someone living, a Westerner living at Radhakund by the name of Richard. And it was said that he had affection for Prabhupada. So when someone told Prabhupada that he wanted to go and live in Radhakund, Prabhupada said that there are already enough monkeys in Radhakund. So what did Prabhupada mean? And if you go to Radhakund, you will see there definitely are enough monkeys in Radhakund, and their business is the usual monkey business. Just monkey business. Breaking this, ripping that, running, chasing, doing this, doing that. Nothing spiritual, actually. So, to actually practice spontaneous devotional service deeply, Raganuga Bhakti deeply, and Prabhupada is going to explain this later about the Prakriti Sahajis and their so-called Siddha Pranali. If one prematurely tries to do these things, one just gets himself into a lot of trouble. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur expressed in a song that, my dear mind, you say that you want to do Nirjana Bhajan, or go alone to some secluded place and chant, but you just know that you are doing this just to get some fame. So everyone will say, oh, what a great devotee he is. He's just chanting like Haridas Thakur. And if one prematurely tries to do this, in the Bhagavad Gita the term used is mityachar. Mitya means false and achar means activities. And Prabhupada's translation is pretender. So one becomes a pretender externally, sitting alone in Radhakund, and everyone's thinking, oh, the great Babaji. But inside, what is he thinking? Prabhupada once gave me this example. When I told him that there was one sannyasi appeared to be very advanced, he was always thinking about Krishna, but still Prabhupada was very angry with him. So he said, you can't tell he's thinking about Krishna. And he gave the example, just like when the phone rings, and I don't want to answer the phone. I say, oh, I have such a headache, oh, I can't answer the phone, oh. So no one knows what's going on inside. So in this way, people cheat and people become cheaters. To prematurely renounce, as you are hearing in the Bhagavad Gita, is exactly the opposite of Krishna's instructions, and it is exactly the opposite of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. One's heart has to become clean and clear. sometimes someone is found imitating, so imitating it, but then attached to abominable things, and there's no good result will come from that. When one is actually spontaneously attracted to the loving principles of the gopis, there will be found no trace of any mundane contamination in his character. Niharam iva bhaskaram, just like the sun dissipates the fog, so similarly devotion in the spontaneous way will have dissipated any anarthas within one's heart. Therefore, in the beginning, everyone strictly follow the regulative principles of devotional service according to the injunctions of the scriptures and the spiritual master. Only after the stage of liberation from material contamination can one actually aspire to follow in the footsteps of the devotees in Vrindavan. It is said by Srila Rupa Goswami, when one is actually liberated from material contamination, you can always remember. So here he's describing it. Now there are 3 verses in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu wherein Rupa Goswami actually describes the process in basic, the process of Raganuga Bhakti. And here is the first one. The first is, I can't remember it right now, Sanskrit. Seva saraka rupena siddha rupena chatrihi tadbhava lipsate karya braja lokana sarata. That means, this is a translation from, this is Prabhupada's translation from Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the transcendental realm of Braja, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates. Tad bhava lipsuna karja. That one in the same bhava, that bhava or mood of the associates of Krishna, one should serve in that mood. And one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. Braja loka, lokanasarata. You should place yourself under a great devotee there, a Ragatmika Bhakta, and follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the method of sadhana and spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when one is a siddha purusha, spiritually perfect soul. So seva sadhaka rupena, externally, one should be acting, following the instructions of acting as Rupa Goswami acted. Seva sadhaka rupena and siddha rupena chatriti. And internally, one should be acting as Rupa Goswami internally was. And who was Rupa Goswami internally? Rupa Manjari. So this is what it means to be a Rupanuga devotee too. It means to be following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Rupa Goswami. Externally acting, following the principles as as a sadhaka, as a practitioner, and internally feeling, adopting the mood of Rupa Goswami in his siddha form of Rupa Manjari. Oh, I'm sorry, this wasn't the first one. This was probably the third one. Second one. That was the second one. The first one is Krishna Smaram Janam Chasya Preshtam Nida Samihitam Tat Tat Katara Taschaso Kuryad Vasham Brajasada. The devotee should always think of Krishna within himself. Krishna Smaram Janam Chasya. And one should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. Preshtam means very dear. Nija Samihitam. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his loving relationship to Krishna. One should live in Vrindavan. However, if one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22:160. Krishna Smaram Janam Chasya Preshtam Nija Sumihitam Tat Tat Katara Taschasya Braja Lokana Kuryat Vasam Braja Sada. Sada means always, Braja means Braja, Vas is living, and Kuryad, you should always be living in Vrindavan. And Tat Tat Kata Ratas Chasyo means that you should be thinking of the different kata, Krishna kata, Krishna Smaram Janam Jasya. One should be always remembering Krishna. Again, this is the main principle of all sadhana, always remembering Krishna. And thinking of a dear devotee of Krishna. Know this verse? So, here's what Prabhupada explains over here. When one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. So that's Krishna Smaram Janam Jasya Preshtam Nigda Sumihitam. Developing such an aptitude, one will always live in Vrindavan, even within his mind. The purport is that if it is possible, one should go and physically be present in Brajabhumi Vrindavan and be engaged always in the service of the Lord, following the devotees in Brajadam, the spiritual realm of Braja. If it is not possible, however, to be physically present in Vrindavan, one can meditate anywhere upon living in that situation. Wherever he may be, one must always think about life in Brajadam and about following the footsteps of a particular devotee in the service of the Lord. A devotee was actually advanced to Krishna consciousness. This is the second verse over here. The second verse find it. Vaidhi Bhakti Vitani 2. Shravanot Kirtana Dini Vaidhi Bhakti Vitani 2. Yan Gani Tanyatra Vigyayani Manishavi. The various practices of Vaidhi Bhakti, such as hearing and chanting, which have been previously described, are also useful in Raganuga Bhakti. The wise should know this. Vigyayan Manishavi. A devotee who is actually advanced to Krishna consciousness, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, should not manifest himself, even though he has attained perfection. The idea is that he should always continue to act as a neophyte devotee, as long as his material body is there. Activities in devotional service under regulative principles must be followed even by the pure devotee. That's Vaidhi Bhakti Datani 2. So, it is actually never mentioned by Rupa Goswami that if one is practicing spontaneous devotional service, that one should give up following the rules and regulations. Rather, just the opposite is mentioned by Rupa Goswami and also by Prabhupada. But when he realizes, so he's following the rules and regulations, but when he realizes his actual position in relationship with the Lord, he can, along with the discharge of his regulative service, think within himself of the Lord. That's the third verse. Seva sadaka rupena siddha rupena tatrihi tat bhava lipsate koyad braja lokana sarata. That externally one should follow just as Rupa Goswami followed, and the example is given on what was Rupa Goswami following as the Sanka Purvaka Namadana Kali. What is the rest of that? Anyone know? Radha Krishna Guner Smriti, is that the same one? Yeah. So inside Radha Krishna Guner Smriti, the qualities of Radha and Krishna remembering, but outside Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Nakabi, always chanting, bowing down in scheduled measurements, chanting the holy names, bowing down, doing this, doing that. So following all the different rules and regulations externally, internally thinking of of serving as Rupa Goswami served in his form of Rupa Manjari. Then Prabhupada gives us some warnings about improper practices of Raganuga Bhakti that are being carried out, not especially at Radhakund, but also at Radhakund and almost anywhere there are Babajis. In this connection, we should be careful about the so-called Siddha Pranali. Siddha Pranali Siddha means perfection and Pranali just means process. So the so-called process of perfection. And what is that? It's followed by a class of men who are not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves as associates of the Lord. This external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principles. The so-called Siddha Pranali process is followed by the Prakriti Sahajiyas, a pseudo-sect of so-called Vaishnavas. In the opinion of Rupa Goswami, such activities are simply a disturbance to the standard way of devotional service. So what is the Siddha Pranali? The so-called Siddha Pranali. It means that at the time of initiation, one is given his eternal identity. So you are a cow, you are a peacock, you are a mouse in Vrindavan, you are a cowherd boy, you are a monkey, you are a gopi, like that. And internally, and then they give you what they call Ekadasa Bhav, or 11 different symptoms, or not symptoms, but moods. What is your dress? What kind of clothes you wear? What is your what village you come from? Who your parents are, etc., like that. And then this so-called Siddha Pranali, the people meditate on this, having faith that they are this thing, and even though they are neophytes, and that's the so-called Siddha Pranali. But actually, getting these things, knowing who one is eternally, is not a cheap thing. It is meant for very, very exalted souls. And it can be revealed from within, or as explained in Jaiva Dharma, the Guru can reveal it like that. So Prabhupada decries this so-called Siddha Pranali system, and it doesn't work. It's the Asiddha Pranali. And so many of false Gaudiya Vaishnavas have taken to cheaply doing this, as if just by imagining oneself as an associate of Krishna, one actually becomes associate of Krishna. So that is the definition of Prakriti Sahajiya. That Sahajiya means one who takes things cheaply, and Prakriti means material. So it means that just based on one's faith, one is considering himself an associate of the Lord, but it takes so much more than that. Yeah.
But the spiritual master, like a pure devotee, he can tell the constitutional position of the disciple.
There's one, at least generally, for sure.
Before the disciple.
At least generally. Generally means Krishna Nityadas, that everyone is a servant of Krishna. There's in Jaiva Dharma, or in Harinam Chintamani, it describes how the spiritual master, he gives you something, and if you don't like it, you can go back to him if it doesn't exactly suit you. This is in Harinam Chintamani. So this is very esoteric subject matters.
We discussed about the importance of meditation in the previous chapter. How in bad meditation gives some benefit to such
To service,
yes.
But one shouldn't, and therefore I caution everyone not to imagine, and this is specifically what we shouldn't imagine, things like this.
Does Sahajis have any benefit? Because sometimes they have meditation like this. Imagine themselves in relation to Krishna. And Krishna is
But it is imagination. So there is some benefit, just like Prabhupada said, we decry the chanting of this mantra, Nitya Gaur Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. But so Prabhupada said, just by chanting Nitya Gaur, there is some benefit.
Sometimes we see it men dressed up.
Well, that's this whole separate one. Also you see that in New York, by the way.
What's the reason?
See, there's a whole, even there was this one how to call it, initiated disciple of Hemalata Takarini, who was I can't remember, Srivas Thakur's daughter. And during the time, he had a disciple whose name was Rupa Kaviraj. And during the time of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he made up this system of Seva Sadhaka Rupena, that even as a sadhaka, you should be externally, as a sadhaka, you should be engaging your body as if you were Siddha Rupena Chatridi. So therefore, they dress most peculiarly in saris and things like that, as if in some way, by doing that, they will be able to attract Krishna and learn how to play the part or something like that. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur kicked him out of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. But still, there are followers. But so you see them every once in a while walking around in saris.
So they're actually following the process. What they call.
They follow a so-called process, but they're not following a process. They are following something that's very bad. As if the material body could somehow be useful and attractive to Krishna or something like that. So they'll put on a nice sari. What is Krishna going to be attracted to? A material body and cloaked in a nice sari. So that's the so-called Siddha. There is actually a real Siddha Pranali. But this is the so-called Siddha Pranali. The process of Siddha Pranali only means the process of Siddha becoming perfect. Srila Rupa Goswami says that learned acharyas recommend that we follow the regulative principles even after development of spontaneous love for Krishna. According to the regulative principles, there are 9 developmental activities as described above, and one should specifically engage himself. This is actually that Vaidhi Bhakti 22. Person may have a particular interest in hearing, chanting, etc., etc., according to one's particular case. So this was under the category of eligibility for spontaneous devotional service. The next topic is conjugal love. Conjugal love is kamanuga. Now there's kamatmika, which means those devotees in Krishna Loka, either Dwarka or Vrindavan, who want to serve Krishna in a conjugal way, and then that is kamatmika or kamarupa, and then following in their footsteps is kamanuga, conjugal love. This is spontaneous raganuga, kamanuga. Devotional service following the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan or the queens of Dwarka is called devotional service in conjugal love. This devotional service in conjugal love can be divided into 2 categories. One is direct conjugal love, and the other is indirect. The other, indirect and direct. In both of these categories, one has to follow the particular gopi who is engaged in such service in Goloka Vrindavan. So one is called Keli, or directly engaging in the service of Krishna. To be directly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in conjugal love is technically called Keli. And the other, this Keli performance means to directly join with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are other devotees who do not wish direct contact with the Supreme Person, but who relish the conjugal loving affairs of the Lord with gopis. Such devotees enjoy simply hearing of the activities of the Lord with his devotees. Now, what this means is that they're in the category of Kamarupa, there's this Keli and another category called Tad Tad Bhava Ichchamayi. I'm not going to ever ask you this on a test. Tad Tad Bhava Ichchamayi. That means that you don't desire to enjoy with Krishna and dance with Krishna in the rasa dance. You take the position as a servant and you want to serve those gopis who are already serving Krishna. So the happiness of this Tad Tad Bhava Ichchamayi is bringing Radha and Krishna together, not meeting Krishna directly. But there are two different paths, and the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they never will take the first of Keli, of desiring to directly be with Krishna. It is against the principles of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, etc. All the devotees on the spontaneous platform only wish to become the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, even though that option is there, but it is fraught with difficulties. And that will be explained actually indirectly a little bit later. Any questions about this? Yes.
Does living identity has real choice to become killing?
It's not really it's not a choice. It's not possible. This development of conjugal love can be possible only with those who are already engaged in following the regulative principle. Prabhupada's making the point again. Specifically in the worship of Radha and Krishna in the temple, such devotees develop a spontaneous love for the deity, and by hearing of the Lord's exchange of loving affairs with the gopis, they gradually become attracted to those pastimes. After this spontaneous attraction becomes highly developed, the devotee is placed either in the above-mentioned categories. So, that other one, see the Saki, that Keli is becoming a Saki, or one who directly relates with Krishna, and the other is becoming a Manjari, or a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. Never, ever desiring to be alone with Krishna, only desiring to serve Srimati Radhika. Like that. Next point. The next point is that this wanting to become a gopi or Mother Yasoda or anything like this, it has nothing to do with the material body. So it is not that only women can become gopis and men they will become cowherd boys, or they will become like Nanda Maharaj. It has nothing to do with the material body at all. And the example given of this is all on the spiritual platform. The sages of Dandakaranya, when they saw Lord Ramachandra, and they were actually devotees of Krishna, but when they saw Lord Ramachandra, their mood to love the Lord in conjugal love, they weren't being very successful. Actually, they had been doing their meditation for 60,000 years, and they weren't achieving very much success. And then Lord Ramachandra blessed them that in the next birth they would take their birth in the womb of Braja Gopis, which is required to actually develop this Braja Bhakti in the mood of the Gopis. So they were sages in the forest, big beards and everything, and yet they were desiring to love Lord Ram and actually Lord Krishna in the mood in a conjugal relationship. So this is described in the commentaries in the 10th canto about the different classes of gopis. Now, the the paragraph on page 129 beginning conjugal love is divided into two classifications. So this explains that there are two ways to love Krishna in a conjugal relationship. One is called Swakiya and the other is called Parikya. One means in marriage and one is called Upapati or paramour. No marriage. and the love of the gopis, when there is no relationship, just as kept maidservants to Krishna, not wanting anything, even to be married to Krishna, just wanting to serve him in this way, this is considered the highest of possible relationships to Krishna. Out of these two, if one wants to have the relationship with Krishna of marriage, then one has to go to Dwarka. One cannot be in Braja, in Vrindavan. That is called Mahishi Bhav. So you still want something. Have Krishna as your husband. But in Braja, that is even given up. I just want to please Krishna. Whatever happens to me, I don't care. Next is description of parenthood or friendship. This is Sambandhanuga. So there is Kamanuga and Sambandhanuga under the category of Raganuga, which means following the Ragamika, Kamatmika, and Sambandhatmika devotees. Is this all clear? All these little technical terms. Anuga, when this spontaneous attraction and with thoughts always absorbed is taking place in a residence of Vrindavan, it is Atmika, Kamatmika, Sambandhatmika, or Kamarupa, Sambandharupa. Then when someone is following in their footsteps, it is called Raganuga, or Sambandhanuga, or Kamarupa, or Kamanuga. Now, devotees who are attracted to Krishna as parents or friends should follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj or Subal, respectively. Nanda Maharaj is the foster father of Krishna, and out of all the friends of Krishna, Subal is the most intimate in Brajabhumi. In the development of becoming either the father or friend of the Lord, there are two varieties. One method is that one may try to become the father of the Lord directly, and the other is that one may follow Nanda Maharaj and cherish the ideal of becoming Krishna's father. Out of these two, the attempt to directly become the father of Krishna is not recommended. Just like attempting to push Srimati Radharani out of the way so you can enjoy with Krishna, it is not recommended at all. Such a development can become polluted with Mayavad philosophy. The Mayavadis or monists think that they themselves are Krishna. And if one thinks that he himself has become Nanda Maharaj, then his parental love will become contaminated with the Mayavad philosophy. I once, when I was in Hong Kong, many years ago, I met one Indian lady, and someone introduces her. She is Mother Yasoda. This is the path she is following, but she is thinking she is Mother Yasoda. So of course, at that time I didn't know what to think exactly, so I said, "Pleased to meet you, Mother Yasoda." Very nice. I wasn't actually convinced at all that she was Mother Yasoda. But how ridiculous. I don't remember if I told you this story. There was one time a friend went to one of these Rasa Leela plays, and it was a Bengali one. But the story came that Radha and Krishna were there. They were sitting on a throne, and then some gopis came by, and they said, "Please, let us put on a dramatic performance for your pleasure." So Radha and Krishna said, "Fine, and if we please you, please grant us our desire." Yes. So they put on a pastime, a play, a drama, Nata, of Radha and Krishna, some pastime of Radha and Krishna playing, enjoying together. And Radha and Krishna were so pleased after. Srimati Radharani said, "What do you want? Whatever you want, you have pleased us so much. Whatever you want, I will give you. What do you want?" And so all those little gopis said, "We want Sham." This is a bogus story. And this is not in the mood of a devotee. Get out now, Radharani, we have pleased you, go. This is like Mayavad philosophy. The guru becomes pleased with the disciple. What do you want? I want to become God. I want to become guru. Like that. This is wrong philosophy. And in Vrindavan, you also very often hear even devotees. This kind of devotee will sometimes say, Radhe, Radhe, Sham Maladi. You've heard that? This is bogus. Radhe, Radhe, give me Sham. This is not our philosophy. We want Sham. No. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, my happiness is to bring Radha and Krishna together. This is the happiness of a devotee. Who can please Krishna more? You or Srimati Radharani? Good point. This is actually correct. You get 100% on this test. So we want to give Krishna pleasure. This is the whole purpose. We want to make Krishna happy. And who can please Krishna the most? That is the happiness of a devotee. So always the devotees are satisfied. They don't want Sham. They don't want to become Radharani, take over Radharani's position or anyone else's position. They just want to become the servant, Gopi Bharta Parakamala, or Dasa Dasa Dasa. Not to enjoy Krishna, just to become a million times removed as servant. In the skanda, so the Mayavadi's way of thinking is offensive, and no offender can enter into the kingdom of God to associate with Krishna. So if you hear any of the skanda devotees saying Radhe Radhe Shambhaladi, you say no, this is not our philosophy. You correct them. In the Skanda Purana, there is a story of an old man residing in Hastinapur, capital of the kingdom of Pandus, who desired Krishna as his beloved son. This old man was instructed by Narada to follow in the footsteps of Nanda Maharaj, and thus he achieved success. So this is the process as it is explained. And also there's another one. This is the example of how it is done. This can be done through worship of the deity. There's a statement in the Narayan Vyuhastav prayer that persons who are always engaged in thinking of the Lord as their husband, friend, father, or well-wisher are always absorbed, always worshipable by everyone. Now, the process, Prabhupada has said on many occasions, it automatically happens, right? You follow Vaidhi and then it automatically happens. But here Prabhupada will say something different. The spontaneous love for Krishna can be developed only by the special mercy of Krishna or his pure devotees. This is actually the process. Through mercy, where it's a totally ascending, rather descending process. This process, and then the final point over here, this process of devotional service is sometimes called Pushti Marg. Pushti means nourishing, and Marga means path. Such development of sentiment nourishes devotional service to the highest standard. Thus it is called the path of nourishment or Pushti Marg. The Ballava Sampradaya, which belongs to the Vishnu Swami sect of Vaishnava religion, worship Krishna in this Pushti Marg. Generally, devotees in Gujarat worship Balakrishna under this heading of Pushti Marg. Now we are all accomplished in Raganuga Bhakti. We know everything. Yes. You have a question about this? You have a question about this? Okay, go ahead.
Then I understand that this holiness goes for Krishna can be developed by following the religion principle, and at the same time one has to get the mercy of this.
Now this after one is
Both.
how will you get the mercy if you don't follow? You have to be because remember, we want to become on that platform because we want to enjoy it. So the bhakti means to give up the enjoying tendency and to adopt the serving mood. This is what bhakti means. To adopt the serving mood. So therefore, one has to surrender and become a servant of the Vaishnavas, servant of his Guru and the Vaishnavas. Otherwise the serving mood doesn't develop. You can't even start until we become the servant of our spiritual master. Therefore, Ado Guru Parashray. Follow? So we now, Ragana, wow, yeah, but it's with the mood of enjoyment. Yeah, you start.
I don't understand exactly what is characteristic of this Pushti Marga.
It's in the Sambandha Nuga, because they worship Balak, they adopt the mood of being a parent to the deity. Huh?
Because it's written on the dictionary that this first sentence is that this can be attained only by mercy, and the next sentence is that this process is called Pushti Marga.
So you follow the process and then you get the mercy. But it's not completely dependent on the process. Mercy is dependent on nothing.
So this Pushti Marga is referring
It's a process. But to attain the heights, you need mercy.
So to some degree we also follow this Pushti Marga. We can follow
No, Pushti Marga is something very specific. It's a technical name that the Vallabha Sampradaya give their form of worshipping the Balakrishna deity. You want to worship Balakrishna deity? Then we will call it Pushti Marga for you. But we don't do that. That's what it means when you're thinking of Krishna as your son. Like that. You understand?
We were once in the spiritual world.
Huh?
We were once in the spiritual world. And when we go back,
We were once in the spiritual world, he said, and when we go back,
will we attain the same position?
you want more? Which one do you want?
The same position.
You will have the exact position that is suitable for you. Like in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Gopkumar went through every possible position and wasn't satisfied until he became a cowherd boy. He was in Goloka. He was in Vaikuntha. He was worshipping Radha and Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan. In Vaikuntha, he still wasn't satisfied. Even when Lakshmi took on the features of Radharani and Narayan took on the features of Gopal. So we have this in us. So until we are in our natural position, we will not be satisfied. It won't be that you're a cowherd boy. I don't want to be a cowherd. You are a cowherd boy. I don't want to be a cowherd boy. I want to be a now shut up and pick up your stick. I don't want to be a cowherd boy. Now get up! It's not like that. It's based on our desire.
Can you define me clearly about sensual attraction and
I'm sorry? Those two categories? Sensual attraction is in the previous chapter. Right? And it's referring to kamatmika, kamarupa. But in spontaneous love, conjugal love, that paragraph is referring to kamanuga. One is referring to ragatmika bhakti and the other is raganuga bhakti. But sensual attraction and conjugal love are the same. But in the Sanskrit terms, the first one is kamatmika or kamarupa and the second is kamanuga. Okay? Kamanuga means you're following in footsteps. You are trying to adopt the same mood, serving Krishna in the same mood as those residents of Braja or Dwarka that love Krishna in that mood. That's the difference between, that's Kamanuga. Anuga means follower, right? And Kamatmika or Kamarupa means the one who has that.
The acharyas and our Gaudiya Sampradaya, the acharyas, all of them
Basically. Look, but look who they are. Rupa. Who's after Rupa? Yeah. Das Goswami. Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami. He is Tulsi Manjari or Rati Manjari. Then there is Jiva Goswami, who is, I think, Labanga Manjari. Then next, that's Jiva Goswami, Vilas Manjari, right? Sanatana Goswami is one. Then is Krishnadas Kaviraj, who is also someone. And then after is Narottama Das, who is also a Manjari. Everyone is straight. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Kamala Manjari. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is Nayana Manjari. And Prabhupada never... Huh?
I asked.
You asked who?
No, next I asked.
Prabhupada.
Yeah,
Is... Coward. No, that was just to trick you. Speaking generally. That was actually a big controversy years ago.
So actually it's a consideration of Mahaprabhu.
Huh? Basically he came, but not only that, but basically he came to give this. And the Goswamis, the followers, they absorbed in the mood of the gopis. Hey Radhe Bhajate Vake Shalalite Hey Nanda Srinopika. This is, they were externally showing how to practice.
First page of this 15th chapter, this description of Ragatmika, but use this Ragatmika. This is misreading or
how did I explain it? What did I do when I explained it?
after you explain, I understand that this what is called Raganuga should be is Ragatmika. So that is misreading.
When this book was written, I remember in 1969, Purushottam, as we would call him, he was sitting there at Vrindavan just typing away. No one knew anything. There's a problem. So therefore I explained it from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was the exact same thing as explained, but explained it in the other way, in Prabhupada's own words.
Who and how established the identity of Krishna Maharaj? He said. What?
How do we know that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is Nayana Manjari? As far as I know. Yeah, in his writings he said, he told exactly, and Siddhala Lats. Otherwise he knew that we'd put on sorry that I'm James Manjari and you're... Don't mind the crazy kids. Ramachandra Manjari. So this he didn't, because we were so babies, such babies. But we know he is eternally serving Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he didn't want us to speculate. One time I actually asked Prabhupada, not this question. Oh, I forgot to write this one in the book. Remind me later, okay? That Prabhupada was taking massage in Melbourne, and I had heard one story that the devotee Vishnujan had walked into Prabhupada's room and asked him what his rasa was. I'd heard this story. And then, this was the story that I heard, that Prabhupada began to glow brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And Vishnudan became so frightened he crawled out of the room. So I was sitting with Prabhupada and I said, Prabhupada, I heard this story. Then I repeated the story. I said, is this true? And he just laughed and said, just see this nonsense. So I didn't then ask him what his manjari was. Of course I didn't even know what it was. These words all became popular just a few years ago. 5 years ago, no one knew any. 6 years ago, no one had any idea. Even heard the word before. But because of the publishing of all the Vaishnava literatures, everyone's becoming fully familiar with the philosophy. But this isn't our level, and we don't dwell on it.
Is it another method to, say, become direct associate? Actually, they are not Jivathan, or they are energy of Krishna.
They're Shakti effects. Yes. But it's not a method, that's the actual fact. That's not for jivas to. Okay, Hare Krishna. So tomorrow, since we've already passed, not tomorrow, but on Tuesday, we'll give you some time to go from sadhana to siddha, and then we'll perfectly realize Bhava Bhakti on Tuesday. You can't wait?
Are we going to have another test at the end?
I forgot. I don't think so. I don't want to give a test on this. All those who want to, let's have a debate whether we should have a test or not. No, there's no test on this. Just so it's in the books, we should know what it is. We can't avoid. We should understand it properly. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Sure, shirt. Something, at least a sweater or something. Now, chapter 17 of Nectar Devotion is the third wave on the eastern side. On the eastern side of the ocean. It is Bhava Bhakti. There are four waves: Samanya Bhakti, general description of devotional service; Sadhana Bhakti, devotional service and practice, and that was chapters 6 through 16, which included Rag Bhakti, was basically Rag Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. Then 17 and 18 are Bhava Bhakti, static devotional service, and the last chapter, 19, is Prema Bhakti, devotional service and love of God. This chapter is based, or rather, in this chapter, Rupa Goswami has defined what is Bhava Bhakti. First we'll read Prabhupada's first paragraph, and then we'll talk about Rupa Goswami's definition of Bhava Bhakti. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage, beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun, various systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified by being covered, when a devotee is purified like the sun, from his pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve the Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttama Adhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation for material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. So there are three ways, or two ways rather, of dividing up bhakti. One is very simply sadhaka and siddha. One who is practicing and one is perfect. And the other way is how the Nectar Devotion, or Rupa Goswami has divided it up here. And that is sadhaka, or practitioner, sadhana bhakti, and then bhava bhakta, and then prema bhakta. So these two, bhava bhakti and prema bhakti, they are not in the category of sadhana. They are both siddha bhakti. They are both perfect. When one has attained the stage of bhava, his spiritual life is considered perfect. It is already perfect. He has attained that stage of perfection. So therefore Prabhupada explained that this is Uttama Adhikara. Rupa Goswami has defined Prema Bhava Bhakti as a very famous verse. As Rupa Goswami has defined Sadhana Bhakti with that verse, Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhav Sanatad Nitya Bhi Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakata Vidhi Sadyata. As he has defined Sadhana Bhakti and its purpose, similarly, Rupa Goswami has defined Bhava Bhakti. It is Sudha Sattva Visheshat Ma Prema Suryangsa Samyabhak. Now it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, probably in Madhya 22, but I'm not exactly sure. Ruchi Bir Chitta Mazrinya Kritado Bhava Uchite. This is called Bhava. Kritado Bhava Uchite. So there are some characteristics that are mentioned here that Prabhupada has translated into that first paragraph. Sudha Sattva Visheshatma. This means that that one's heart is completely pure above the impurities of the material world. It is past anarthana vritti. There are no particular types of anarthas in the heart. Past nishta and other anarthas have been dissipated. It is past ruchi, when one has a taste, past ashakti, where one has attachment. And one's heart is completely purified. And not only is it completely purified, but the Lord's own Swarup Shakti, His own internal energy, has entered within the heart. And his heart is full of Visuddha Sattva, a different type of Sattva. A Sattva that is completely transcendental, having nothing to do with the modes of material nature. Suddha Sattva Vasesatma. So this is the primary characteristic of Bhava Bhakti, that one's heart is illuminated by the Suddha Sattva potency of the Lord. Then, Prema Suryangsa Samyabhak. This means, this line explains the relationship between Bhava and Prema. Bhava is like a sun ray of Prema. Or Bhava is sometimes called Premankur. It means the seedling of Prema. In other words, as the sun has its kana or sun ray, and the sun ray is the of the same quality, but it is smaller. Similarly, and as the seedling, the ankur will grow into the full-fledged plant. Similarly, bhava is a bit of prema, but it will mature into prema because it is already on the perfection stage. That is prema suryangsa samyabhak. And then the secondary characteristics, ruchi bir chitta, mazrinya. That means, mazrin means the heart has become very, very soft. And therefore, the result of that is two things. That ruchibi, that one gets all types of varieties of tastes, transcendental tastes from the platform of Bhava, and therefore one experiences Bhava or ecstasy. Because the heart is so soft. It has been purified, completely purified, and in addition, Krishna's energy on Swarup Shakti has entered in. Now, such a devotee who has no agitation for material affection, and he is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. Now, in the next paragraph, it's difficult to understand directly. Who's read this chapter carefully? Raise your hand if you've read it carefully. Okay. So see what happens when there's no homework, right? Huh? See what happens when there's no homework and there's no test on it. But of course, we use the motivating forces of homework and tests, but what's the real reason we're here? To learn the science of Krishna consciousness. So, those who aren't interested in Bhava Bhakti, they don't have to read. And especially the chapter on Prema Bhakti, you don't have that section, you don't have to read that either. You don't want to. So next paragraph is a little difficult to understand. I'm going to explain the first half. The Rupa Goswami is giving an analysis of bhakti in general, that's divided into two parts. One part is called Chesta Rupa and the other part is called Bhava Rupa. Chesta, endeavor, like that. Chesta Rupa or Bhava Rupa. Chesta Rupa means, Prabhupada defines it as, he calls it executive. Now this executive or jesta generally means endeavors or activities. This is divided into two parts, Sadhana Rupa and Phala Rupa. Sadhana Rupa is the different activities or that which is executed. One is Sadhana Rupa, and there are two parts of Sadhana Rupa, and they are Vaidhi and Rag. Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. These are Sadhana Rupa under Chesta Rupa, or the executive function of Bhakti. So in other words, under the different executions of Bhakti, the first part is the sadhana, and we already know there are two parts of that, and practically what we've done for the last 5 weeks is discuss this sadhana rupa, the two, mostly Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And then, if one performs Vaidhi bhakti or Raganuga bhakti properly, and he attains the mercy of Krishna or his devotees, and he's performing the activities properly, then the Phala Rupa comes, which means the fruit or the effect. The effect of Sadhana Rupa is Phala Rupa, or basically the effect is Bhava Bhakti itself, and the effect of that is the Anubhavas, which will be explained later. The resultant activities of ecstasy, the resultant manifestation of ecstasy. So the Anubhavas of Chesta Rupa, this is all technical, but if you don't understand this, you'll never understand that paragraph. So those, the result of the sadhana is the Bhava Bhakti, and the result of the Bhava Bhakti is the manifestations of ecstasy known as Anubhav. So this was under Chesta Rupa. And secondly, there is Bhava Rupa. And Bhava Rupa is divided into two parts: Sai Bhava Rupa and Sanchari Bhava Rupa. So Sai Bhava Rupa and Sanchari Bhava Rupa, or Vyabhachari Bhava Rupa, will be discussed later in the next section.
What is divided into these two parts?
Bhava Rupa. So there's Chesta Rupa and Bhava Rupa. Bhava Rupa is the effect. There's the executive, and then there's the effective. It is the Anubhava is the effect that come after one is on the platform of Bhava Bhakti. His Sthai Bhava is there, and then when there is some stimulation, then to the Sthai Bhava, then the results are Sattvika Bhavas or Anubhavas. The resultant ecstasy, the Vibhava, which is the stimulation. This is all the science of rasa, which is described in the southern side of the ocean. So Rupa Goswami and Prabhupada, they don't discuss this in any detail right now, but it is a way of analyzing rasa and devotional service. Prabhupada explains in the second half of the second paragraph, this effective portion of devotional service is called bhava, or ecstasy. In this connection, there's a statement in the Tantras that ecstasy is the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead. And in that stage, one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but occasionally. That is Bhava Bhakti. They are occasionally manifest. When King Ambarish was put into difficulty by Durvas, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus there were some changes in his body, and tears were falling from his eyes. These symptoms are activities of ecstasy. So that is Bhava Bhakti. Now, what's going to happen in the remainder of this chapter, after defining what Bhava Bhakti is, and we'll talk more about that in a few moments, and that is ecstatic devotional service. Next, Prabhupada is going to explain the different methods of attaining the platform of Bhava Bhakti. There are basically two. Constant association with pure devotees, or another way of looking at that is fixedness in the spiritual practices, constantly engaged in the spiritual practices, or constant association with devotees. And also the second way is mercy of the Lord or the Lord's devotees, either sadhana siddha or kripa siddha. And that's basically the rest of the chapter. Any questions up to this point? Yeah.
What is the difference between this Phala Rupa and Bhava Rupa?
Phala Rupa. Phala Rupa means the effects, the anubhavas. This is how the acharyas have explained it. It means the anubhavas, the effect.
But Bhava Rupa is not the effect of...
The effect, the Bhava Rupa isn't a visible effect, and anubhavas are visible.
Still I don't understand the difference.
That's all.
Because Sadhana Rupa is Phala Rupa. But not this Phala.
And the executive, when one executes these, one has, it's also Bhava Rupa.
That means that this is such like this Sadhana Rupa, Phala Rupa and Bhava Rupa.
You mean like this? No, there are two parts, Chesta Rupa and Bhava Rupa. Chesta Rupa is divided into two parts itself, sadhana and phala, the effect. sadhana and the effect. That's basically means sadhana and siddha. That's just rupa. And then bhava rupa itself means sthai bhav and the sanchari bhavas. It's very, of course, we don't understand.
Yes.
I wouldn't worry about it.
It is just a rupa. If you exclude Vaidhi, then it will lead to Ras. This is the result.
Those both are the two categories of sadhana rupa. And the result of that, of either of those, is bhava.
In describing the one's progression in spiritual life, what is Rupa Goswami's comments on going from sadhana then straight to bhava and to prayer, which seems to be like right at the extremes of devotion?
I think his Adosh Radha verse is also in there, although we actually didn't speak about that, I realized that.
Yeah, there's like maybe something sort of in between, like sort of halfway between prema and sadhana.
I don't follow your question.
I was just thinking, like, you know, why he discussed prema and bhava, which is sort of right on the other spectrum of devotion, so it's practicing sadhana.
So you're more interested in the sadhana bhakti, he's more interested in the prema bhakti. The book isn't only for you, it's the science of devotional service. And if you look at the number of pages in the book, how many are devoted to the sadhana level? Not anywhere near up to here. So it's 130 pages on sadhana, and twice as much in the remainder of the book, more than twice as much. Just twice as much. So for us, it seems that's our interest in one sense. Yeah.
I understand that you explained before that this word adhikari means that one is
Qualification.
Yeah, that has qualification, and I have understanding that this difference between Uttama Adhikari and Uttama Bhagavata.
Yeah, but Prabhupada uses the terms interchangeably often. As here. In the beginning, in the chapter of eligibility for devotional service, those terms, Uttama Adhikari means, etc., means eligibility, like that. But here, it means what we Prabhupada, he used it completely interchangeably. Any other questions at this point?
It says that devotees who attend the platform of Bhava, they pass the platform of anartha. Does it mean that?
Of course.
Does it mean that sadhana bhaktas they cannot experience any anubhavas?
Yes. Yes, definitely.
It's
Not possible. Anubhavas, first the sthai bhava has to be there, but this is explained later.
So many times I heard from different devotees about their experiences from Sankirtan or
But that's not,
Kirtan.
that's something nice, it's something wonderful, it's Krishna's mercy. But it's not an anubhava. Anubhava is out of this world. It has nothing to do with this world at all. See, until the sthai bhava is there, until one is on the platform of bhava, bhakti, there is no question of ecstasy on this level. And we already heard that this type of bhakti, bhava bhakti's characteristic is what? What are the two characteristics?
Bhava. They pass no agitation, they pass
No, the ones that we learned right in the beginning when we studied the 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. There are 2 characteristics of bhava bhakti in addition to 2 that come from sadhana bhakti. Sudurava and moksha labhutati. So Sadolabha means very rare. So this platform that we're talking about now is not ordinary. It is very rare. Now, any other questions? Yes.
Because I don't understand, if one attends platform of Bhava, he also continue practice, that he continues sadhana or not?
No. Yeah, sometimes the Baba Bhaktas are also called sadakas. But they're not sadakas like those devotees who are before Baba Bhakti. They are called sadakas because they are practicing to attain the platform of prema. But their result is more or less guaranteed. Because this is already the Siddha platform, the perfect platform.
I mean, they practice how we learn about these 64 rangas,
No, that has to do with sadhana bhakti.
but they don't practice this.
They don't have to practice really, but they hear and chant. This is their practice. But that's the basis of sadhana. They're completely spontaneously attracted. The difference between ruchi and ashakti is that in ruchi your mind wanders away from Krishna, but you have a taste, so you bring it back to Krishna. And in ashakti, your mind is attracted to Krishna naturally. Sometimes it wanders away, but it will naturally wander back because that's your attachment. And you cannot, in ashakti, you cannot live a moment without Krishna. And that's nothing compared to Baba Bhakti. That is before Krishna has given you his full mercy, basically. Yeah. So there is some practice, because it is called sadhaka, and the example that will be given of the sadhaka, of Baba Bhakti sadhaka, is Vilamanga Thakur. But it is not at all like the practices. It's just hearing and chanting. It's very internal.
I know this is maybe wrong, but could you explain something, because I completely don't understand what is difference between Bhava Bhakti, which one can attain by following Vaiti Bhakti, and when one attains for Bhava, because I can also understand that it is Bhava Vaiti and Bhava Raganuga or not?
Not Bhava Raganuga. Raganuga is sadhana. But, okay, one is in the Rag Marg. Okay, yes.
This mood of...
Yeah, and also, what I'm going to do is read some quotes now from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now, they are very high-level quotes, but we're dealing with high-level subject matter. What to do? This will make it clearer or more confusing, I'm not sure, but I'll read them anyway.
I think it would be possible to outline even the course.
Not for me. Not right now. You mean about Chestarupa, this and that? No. I can't do that right now. Huh?
You can dictate it.
Well, I already dictated it. You can write it. but okay, after the quotes, if there's time. Anyway, you have so much free time. I'll show you the little chart I made. But it's not something that I have deep knowledge of, quite frankly. But listen to these quotes, they're very interesting. What I'll do is I'll read the quote and then I'll tell you where it is. So therefore, if you're interested, you can write down the reference. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one performs pious activities for thousands of births, continuously. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time, but once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken, even after the annihilation of the material world. So this is part of it is a translation of that verse that spoken in the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavatamati. So this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, Adi 157 purport. They're all from the purports. Everywhere in the world, people worship me, this is Krishna speaking, according to the scriptural injunctions. But simply by following such regulative principles, one cannot attain the loving sentiments of the devotees in Brajabhumi. Adi Leela 3:15. That's the verse. Knowing my opulences, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration. But devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. Purport. One may understand the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the Vedic literature, and thus become a devotee of the Lord and worship Him within the regulative principles described in the scriptures. But one will not know in this way how Krishna is served by the residents of Brajabhumi. One cannot understand the dealings of the Lord in Vrindavan simply by executing the ritualistic regulative principles mentioned in the scriptures. By following scriptural injunctions, one may enhance his appreciation for the glories of the Lord, but there is no chance for one to enter into personal dealings with Him. Giving too much attention to understanding the exalted glories of the Lord reduces the chance of one's entering a personal loving affairs with the Lord. To teach the principles of such loving dealings, the Lord decided to appear as Lord Chaitanya. That's from Adi Leela 3, text 16, verse and purport. Now, this doesn't at all mean that we shouldn't appreciate the glory of the Lord. This is talking about very advanced devotion. By performing such regulated devotional service of awe and veneration, one may go to Vaikuntha and attain the 4 kinds of liberation. That's Adi 3, text 18. My plenary portion can establish the principles of religion for each age. No one but me, however, can bestow the kind of loving service performed by the residents of Braja. Adi 3:26. The Lord's desire to appear was born of 2 reasons. He wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, and He wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. Purport. The real purpose of Lord Krishna's appearance was to stage a dramatic performance of His transcendental pastimes at Brajabhumi, thus exhibiting the highest limits of transcendental mellow in the exchanges of reciprocal love between the living entities and the Supreme Lord. These reciprocal exchanges of mellows are called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord in transcendental rapture. Lord Sri Krishna wants to make known to all the conditioned souls that He is more attracted by Raga Bhakti than Vaidhi Bhakti, or devotional service under scheduled regulations. It is said in the Vedas, Raso Vaisa, the Absolute Truth is the reservoir for all kinds of reciprocal exchanges for loving sentiments. He is also causelessly merciful, and He wants to bestow upon us the privilege of Raga Bhakti. Thus He appeared as His own internal energy. So don't think this is cheap though. This is Mahaprabhu's desire. But not that someone can just say, oh, it's His desire, therefore I'll act like this, and therefore I'll be this. Nothing like that at all. One has to become completely purified of heart. Yes.
There is one statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita where it says that Lord wants to distribute His love of God to anyone and everyone, whether qualified or not qualified. So
Yeah.
let's see.
When He was traveling, the internal energy, when He was touring South India, the internal energy acted completely independently. And it was bestowing love of Godhead everywhere. But we should understand that is exactly what's happening. That who is qualified? When you hear what the actual qualifications, you read what the activities of the 6 Goswamis were, the austerities they performed, the learning that they had, when we understand what the actual qualifications of being an exalted Vaishnava are, we don't have any qualifications. But yet, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and the entire disciplic succession going back to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are reaping the good fortune of his freely distributing. So practically speaking, if we avoid offenses, it's just a matter of time. He has caught us in his net. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has caught us in his net despite our disqualification. And it's just a matter of time. But that doesn't mean that someone who is disqualified, unqualified, of course, except by Kripa Siddha, as is described, will be described in this chapter. It's not that one like that. It's a process. These ones, of course, I actually wanted to read. They're nice though, but we're running out of a little bit of time. When the pleasure potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is exhibited by His grace in the person of a devotee, that manifestation is called love of God. Love of God is another epithet of the pleasure potency of the Lord. Therefore, devotional service reciprocated between the Lord and His devotees is an exhibition of the transcendental pleasure potency of the Lord. The Ladini potency gives the Lord all transcendental pleasure, and the Lord bestows such a potency upon His pure devotees. So when one is a pure devotee on the platform of a Shakti, and he can't live a moment without Krishna, and he's begging continuously and crying for Krishna's mercy, then if the Lord desires, He gives him His mercy through, generally speaking, through his devotee. And that mercy isn't just general, but it is the descent of Ladini, Shakti and Sambit into the heart of the devotee, by the mercy of the Vaishnava or by the mercy of the Lord. That was from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 4:60, text 60, the purport. When the Sambit factor of cognition is enlightened by the Ladini potency of the same internal energy, they work together, and only thus can one attain knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The essence of Ladini potency is love of God. The essence of love of God is bhava, emotion. And the ultimate development of emotion is mahabhav, purport. That was from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Only when the Ladini Shakti emanates from Sri Krishna and is bestowed upon the living being to attract him, does the living being become a pure lover of God. But the same Ladini Shakti is adulterated by the external material energy and emanates from the living being. It does not attract Krishna. On the contrary, the living being becomes attracted by the glamour of the material energy. Anyway, the point of me reading these, there are some very interesting things written in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the point is, I wanted to explain exactly what this Bhava Bhakti is. It is when, by the Lord's mercy and the mercy, there's two ways that one can attain this platform of Bhava Bhakti. One is by strictness and sadhana practices, and the other is by mercy. And there's two kinds of mercy, either by the Lord or the Lord's devotee. And Prabhupada, in the Nectar of Devotion, he equates that first way of strictness in sadhana practices with constant association with pure devotees. Did you notice that? These two Prabhupada equates as one. Because if one is fixed and constantly associating with pure devotees, the only thing that they do is hear and chant about Krishna, serve Krishna. So naturally the only thing that the sadhaka will do is hear and chant about Krishna. if he constantly associates. And we should understand that this constant association can be done in two ways, Vapu and Vani. So the rest of the chapter is basically a description of these different ways that one can attain this Bhava platform, or attain the mercy of Krishna in the form of the descent of Ladini and Samvit Shakti, the Lord's internal energy within the heart of the living entity. And that is Bhava Bhakti. Okay, are there any questions? And then we'll continue reading. But one's heart has to be purified. So someone could say, as you were pointing out, that if there's mercy, what is the need of practice? You weren't pointing it out directly, but and sometimes the devotees think, I'll just go and work very, 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 very hard, and then I'll get Krishna's mercy, and therefore I won't have to worry. But this isn't exactly our philosophy, actually. Our philosophy is we have to become purified. And Prabhupada explains this when he explains his example about the university degree, the honorary university degree. So yes, some people get honorary university degrees. But how do most people get their university degrees? They study and they study and they study and they study and they study. And it is not that they go and clean the offices of the professors and hope that the professors are going to be merciful to him and give him an honorary degree. No. They do the proper work that they're supposed to do. And therefore, if one does the practices, if one properly practices sadhana bhakti, then that's how one gets the mercy. It is not that one can avoid sadhana, just work, and his consciousness isn't good, he doesn't study, he doesn't read, he doesn't know philosophy, but he thinks I'm just going to work and Krishna's going to appreciate my work and I'm going to get mercy and go back to Godhead in that way. Forget it. One has to become purified because Krishna does not need our work. What does he want? Patram pushpam palam toyam. A leaf, a fruit, a flower, if it is given with devotion. So we must purify our heart. And we must rid ourselves of the lower modes of material nature. Otherwise, actually speaking, it will never happen. The heart has to become purified. The container has to be purified before it can hold the Sudha Sattva Visheshatma, Premangsa, Suraya. Is that point clear? Don't think like this, even though many devotees think like this. Prabhupada did not recommend we sit back and work hard and hope for Kripa Shakti. Kripa will become purified like that. No. But we should understand that when we're given mercy, actually it is never actually sadhana that brings us to the platform of Bhava. It is never actually sadhana. It's always the mercy. It's always mercy. We only advance actually by mercy, the mercy of the association, but specifically to get to the platform of Bhava, one needs the mercy of the Vaishnavas, of exalted Vaishnavas.
But can we work in
Yes, not that we shouldn't work. Don't get me wrong, not that we shouldn't work at all. But we should engage in the full process of hearing, chanting, etc. And the full process, not just the work part. We have to work. To give up work prematurely, before one's heart is purified and in the mode of goodness, you've already learned this in the Bhagavad Gita, means death, spiritual death. So we must work. But we should understand the result of that work is going to be purification of the heart. Tado randistamo bhava kama lobhyas chaye. That the heart must be purified of the lower modes of material nature. If we're always angry, if we're always passionate, if we're always running, if our motives are all mixed, that's what it means to be in Rajatama. Right? It means your motives are going to be mixed, for sure. It is not that when we're in Rajatama, we're going to be serving Krishna out of the desire to please Him. It will be mixed. Because that is the nature of Rajatama. This was the first question I ever asked Prabhupada at 26th Avenue. I asked him, are devotees transcendental? Prabhupada in a lecture, he said that the devotees were in the mode of goodness. And I had always heard that the devotees are transcendental. So I asked him, are the devotees transcendental or are the devotees in the mode of goodness? I thought they were transcendental. And he said, yes, but they generally act in the mode of goodness. If you're not in the mode of goodness, you try and generally act in the mode of goodness. You cannot. You either got to sleep or go and beat somebody up. Or you got to go and, you know that feeling, you got to go and do something. You can't just sit and chant and read and things like that. So the purpose of all these activities in the service of Guru and Gauranga are to elevate us. And the more we are elevated, free from the lower modes of material nature, the more that we have the capacity to understand Krishna consciousness and act on the Krishna conscious platform. You have the Bhagavad Gita overview book? Everyone, you were given that? Has anyone read, there's an essay I wrote at the end called Elevation to Goodness. Who has read that? You've read that. You should read it. It explains it clearly. You have another question for me? Yeah.
But someone has very good inclination to work for Krishna only, but due to his disqualification or something like that, he is not so much inclination to do study and
Yeah.
all different aspects of devotion.
Yeah.
Can he be purified by that?
Yes, of course, you can be purified, but because you can be purified, it doesn't mean that you're pure. It means he has to be purified. Now, why don't we preach like this all the time? Is because if you sometimes devotees, if they think that they're on this platform, they get very discouraged. They would rather think that I'm a very advanced devotee and I'm already purified. But we see the Mahamantra is so powerful that it purifies. And devotees gradually do become purified of the lower modes of material nature if they surrender to the process. And when we are pure, and not only pure means basically nishtha. Means that anarthas, abhadrani is reduced almost to nil. And at that point then Ruchi can come. Then we could have a taste. A real taste. Clear or not clear? This is straight Bhagavad Gita. First 6 chapters. Any other questions? So this is a very exalted consciousness. It cannot, we can all sit down and say, I'm going to read now. I'm going to rid myself of anarthas. We can do that. We can, by the strength of our intelligence even, and our determination, we can do so many things. But one of them is not get to the platform of Baba. That is completely outside of our hands. It only happens by mercy. We are completely dependent on Krishna's mercy, actually in the mercy of his devotees, to become perfect. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada, yasya aprasada nagati katoti. There is nothing we can do on our own. Krishna can bestow it upon us, but there is nothing we can do on our own to force him. Therefore, we say that sadhana is not a cause of bhava, in one sense. It means there is no sadhana that one can do that can force Krishna's mercy to descend. But if we have the right consciousness in heart, we can attract Krishna to send his mercy. It is not the sadhana that brings one to the state of bhava, it is Krishna's mercy and the mercy of the Vaishnavas. And then on this platform, one is actually a Vaishnava. Bhava. Then one is a Vaishnava.
So making all this purification, we're doing that now, and mercy is independent.
Bhakti's cause is bhakti. It is completely independent. Bhakti is independent. We're getting so much mercy. And we are in touch with the internal energy of the Lord. That is bhakti. That is one of the vrittis, energies of bhakti. The whole sadhana process, we've explained this before. This is Krishna's internal energy. But we're trying to get purified and get the taste. The reason why Krishna doesn't bestow, there's a few reasons explained, Bhava Bhakti easily, is because by it he is purchased. It is not cheap. It is so powerful. And unless one, we explained this when we were discussing Sadulava, that unless one has a deep taste and is performing his sadhana with relish, taste, ruchi, Krishna is not attracted to give, to bestow this. It is not a cheap thing. This bhakti is not cheap. Not, I'd like to be a bhakti. It sounds really good. It's perfect. Yes, but it is sadolabha. Know that it is sadolabha. Know that we will have to shed many a tear. Takes lifetimes of lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. Sometimes we describe it like that, and then all the devotees go, oh no, I was hoping by the time I was 35. But Prabhupada often said, in this life, we can do it. We can do it. But it is not cheap, and it is not something you just by memorizing the difference between Jasta Rupa and Bhava Rupa and these things. It is not a product of the intelligence. Bhagavad Gita is written on that platform. It is meant for intelligent people. And by the strength of intelligence, you can order your life around the Bhagavad Gita. Evam Bude Param Budva Samstavyapmanapmana Jahi Shatram Mahabaho Kamarupa Darashtanam. By the higher self, by the strength of intelligence, we can control our lower natures. That is Bhagavad Gita. But this is not like that. Bhava Bhakti is not like that. We have to actually give up our intelligence practically. Not give up our intelligence, but we have to give up on this stage dependence on our intelligence and only be fully immersed in depending on Krishna and the devotees and their mercy. Because that intelligence also becomes a source of pride. And if we're proud, how can we depend? So it's very, very tricky. Actually, to different devotees, you have to preach on different levels. Because if we talk about the misgivings of intelligence now, then everyone says, well, why should I bother studying? But actually, if we don't study, we won't know the philosophy, and we won't make advancement. If we don't study this Krishna conscious knowledge. Question?
Will you please reveal to us some of the essences of the Lord embodied is whom we can worship?
We should start with our Guru Maharaj and then straight back. If we don't follow the instructions of our Guru Maharaj, then no one will accept our worship. We cannot jump over. No one will accept our prayers.
This test for hearing and chanting.
It's very good. How to get it?
Prabhupada says in the first canto, it comes as a result of service. But you're explaining how it comes as a result of mercy as well. So is it the service that attracts the mercy?
That is the proper result of all the work. You know the verse? Shushusho Shaladanasya Vasudeva Karuchi Syan Mahatsevaya Vibro Punya Tirthana Sevana. Means as a result, this taste of hearing and chanting comes from serving the great devotees. So if we can dissect it and say, well, I'm going to serve you, so therefore I'll get my taste and try to do business. But the process is very simple. Although Guru Parasraya we follow very, very simply. We take shelter of our spiritual master, beg him for his mercy, follow all the processes, learn the science, surrender. We have to see the limitations of our intelligence. That we have to see right in the beginning. We have to, like Arjuna, we have to understand that the result of our intelligence and our own endeavors, like Arjuna is in the beginning of the second chapter, what was it? Simply confusion. And therefore he surrenders.
Like when Prabhupada changed the chanting system around to 16 hours, Krishna said that Prabhupada was authorized to chant. So, like when this Krishna master bestowed the mercy on the disciple, does Krishna rise the desire of his spiritual master?
The key of the spiritual master's qualification is that he knows how to evoke the mercy of his Guru Maharaj and the disciplic succession on the devotees. So sometimes the question, we don't talk about it directly maybe, but we talked about it one time. But it is, the need for the spiritual master to be on this platform, right? On the Uttama platform, like that. And someone asked that question at some point, and I said that the disciple will naturally see the spiritual master on that platform because the mercy of the disciple succession is coming to him through his Guru Maharaj. So his qualification, Prabhupada, in one of the last conversations with Prabhupada before he left this world, Prabhupada said that the qualification, he who knows his spiritual master and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can be spiritual master. So if one spiritual master prays to Prabhupada, look how sincere this boy is, Prabhupada. Look how he's working so hard. I think he's working so hard to please you. I am just your servant. And my only qualification is I know what will please you because you have trained me in that way. I know you. So he's worked so hard. I have no authority of my own, but because I am yours, accepted me and listening to my every word. So therefore, look how sincere he is. Because I am your servant, he is surrendering to me. So you please bestow your mercy on me. And then, that devotee, when he is pure, when his heart can actually hold that mercy, then it will all come. The container must be just like, if you want, just like if your container is a leaf cup and you're going to hold molten gold in that, well, you need a special container. And that container is the pure heart. So we haven't finished the rest of the chapter, but the rest is quite clear. And they're all, basically the rest of the chapter is all examples of how this mercy is attained, the platform of Bhava Bhakti attained by spiritual practices, which means association. Prabhupada explains it as basically as association. And because when one is associating with devotees all the time, then one is engaged always in devotional service all the time, because the pure devotee's business is only devotional service. And then after that, on page 133 near the bottom, sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process, all of a sudden one develops devotion for Lord Krishna. This sudden development of devotional attitude in a person must be understood as the special mercy of Krishna and his devotee. Thus, this apparently accidental development of ecstatic feelings through the causeless mercy of Krishna can be divided into three groups: Vachika, Darshanam, Dhan, and Harda. Means just by the well-wishing words, by the glance, and by his sincere heart prayers, felt prayers and well wishes. So all the rest of the quotes here are examples of those three that I mentioned. By glancing, the Naradiya Purana is speaking, then the Skanda Purana one is glancing, heartfelt wishes. Here is heartfelt wishes. As far as heartfelt wishes are concerned, there's a statement in the Sukha Samhita where Narada tells Sri Vyasadeva, "You have a son who is the greatest devotee." The habit of what I do, especially when preparing for courses, I will write in the book. I'm not sure if this is a good thing. Who does that? Who writes in the book? Yeah, not so many. I'm not sure if it's good. I have a feeling it's not so good. I don't know what to do. I can't tell you not to do it because I'm doing it. There's that story that Prabhupada tells of how some lady goes to Mahatma Gandhi. You know that story? And says, "You have to tell my son to stop eating sweets. He's eating sweets all the time." So Mahatma Gandhi says, "You want me to tell your son to stop eating sweets? Yes, you please do this. If you tell him, he'll listen. If I tell him, he doesn't listen. Okay, you come back in 1 week and I will tell him." So in 1 week, the lady comes back with her son, and Mahatma Gandhi, "You should not eat any sweets anymore. You're eating too many sweets. You're going to hurt your liver, this, that. Stop eating all these sweets." So the boy was very, because after all Mahatma Gandhi had told him, he took it very seriously and he stopped eating sweets. Then the lady said, "You go out for a second, I want to talk to him." So she asked Mahatma Gandhi, "You spoke so nicely to him and so strongly to him. Why did you ask me to come back in a week, though? You could have done the same thing last week." And Mahatma Gandhi said, "It's because I was eating too many sweets. So at first I had to stop for a week before I could tell him not to eat sweets. So I cannot tell you not to write in your books, but I don't want you when your spiritual masters and so many senior devotees, when they say, why are you writing in the books? You can say, well, Burijan does it, but you can't say, Burijan told me to do it. That's the difference.